We're almost out of time before we turn it over to questions, but I have one more general question, then I'm going to have a question I'm going to ask each of you. The general question, and I say general question, but Heidi might be the first one to answer this. Rochester was one of the first places that got really good at suburbanizing itself. Mm-hmm. You know, beautiful suburbs, nice school systems, all away from the core city. And so we had a vibrant downtown a long time ago, but everybody decided to move out to the suburbs, and they continue to move out. And so what do we do about that, and what are we doing to get people back to downtown?
The trend is shifting. And what's happening is, as a result, we think of pop culture nationally, a real return to center cities that's going on all across the country, that we're beginning to see the generation of kids that were raised in the suburbs wanting something different. And we're also seeing that in our own community, and more than we expected, that you've got people my age and older, empty nesters, double income, no kids, you know, professionals of various kinds that are moving back into our downtown. And interestingly, we were mentioning in a meeting earlier today, Carlos was at, that we're tracking now 22 new housing development projects, all market rate downtown. And in our particular downtown, we've got about $530 million in investment going on. We've also seen one of the largest turnover rates of property and more out-of-town money coming in, which, you know, we'll see how long all that lasts nationally, but we're certainly seeing it here. And we're finding that I think the real hole in the donut, and trying to interpret what we saw in that survey, I'll bet you a paycheck that what people are responding to is Main and Clinton. And if you step out the front door of the Hyatt Hotel at 7 o'clock on a Tuesday night, and you turn right and left, and people have said, yeah, there's St. Paul Court, a really cool place, great bars, restaurants, live music. Same thing, down a couple blocks to your right on East Avenue to East End, Upper East End, and there are 5,000 young people on Friday and Saturday nights that come down to the clubs there. And you're going to set out front door of that Hyatt and go, you got to be kidding. You're going to take one look at Main Street. You've got the future Renaissance Square site boarded up, most of it. No signs. You don't know what's going on there. Feels very, very empty. And there's nobody around at 7 o'clock on Main Street. Now, if you were to go a couple of blocks off in several different directions, it's a different story. So I think part of our challenge is getting Main Street, you know, it's a sizzle versus steak deal. We've got a lot going on downtown. We've got a ton of projects and investments, a huge amount of nightlife happening, and, you know, 120 some odd restaurants that knock your socks off, most of them. But we've got a perception issue because we think of downtown as Main and Clinton. So we've got to fix Main Street. We've got Midtown and Sibley's that have to be addressed, and they're very, very tough problems. But what's happening all around that is unbelievable, particularly with what's happening in the region. So I think partly it's about perception, partly it's about steak versus sizzle, and we've got to get to some of the core issues. So, you know, we'll see what happens. But now Carlos and I are working on Main Street.
I've got a question on this. I've heard that if you want to, you know, make downtowns more vibrant, you get people to move there. Are you finding that of these units that are going in, that a lot of them are, you know, units that are for more professionals? I mean, people that work downtown, want to live downtown. So these are not these are not kind of middle income or lower income. These are
yeah. They're so far most of the new stuff has been market rate.
Okay, so
and luxury, if you take the Sagamore, for example. And I think it's a mix of people who are working, that there are some of them working downtown, some of them working elsewhere in the region, so there's some reverse commute that's going on too. So it's a real mix of things. Plus we've got some very well-heeled retirees that have moved in too.
That's wonderful.
Very
well, I know it's funny. I live out in Mendon, and I think every day I come in because of various boards I'm on and clients I have, that I'm in and out a couple times a day to downtown, and I don't know, you know. Good thing I drive a Prius, because otherwise I'd be using a lot of...
It's time to move.
Yes, it is.
Have we got a unit for you? Very nice ones.
So what I'd like to do now is I've got one question for each of you. Be brief, because then I want to go open it to questions. But the question is the same question, and so the last person has a lot more time to think about it. But don't think about it. Listen to the other people. If it was up to you to position Rochester, thinking about everything that you already know and the things you saw in this research and the things you heard in this panel discussion, how might you position Rochester, knowing that you won't be held to it, that this is just an intellectual exercise, but maybe we'll hear something we haven't heard before. So who wants to start it? How would you position Rochester? And who would you position it to?
I'll start. Being that we're embarking on a campaign to position Rochester as an arts and cultural community, I would position Rochester as an arts and cultural community. But I think one of the reasons that I'm excited about this effort is because of the fact that the stake is already there, and we just need to layer some sizzle on it. And I think we've got a great product in this area. It's being enhanced naturally. Everything, and that gets back to some of what I was saying before in terms of the crossover between culture and arts and business and education and just the connection that I think is there. That's what I would position it to. And to whom I would position it, I would start with the people in this community to make evangelists of as many people as possible so that we have an army of people pushing that message wherever they are.
Thanks, Todd. Good. Who else?
I'll just, since there's already a vote for the arts and culture one, I can put in a plug for another one. Similar to what Heidi said earlier about sort of releasing, I'm sort of torn on this because I really do see that with organizations like Rock City Coalition and a number of other young professionals groups, there's been a great effort and some success at really trying to get those to speak to the younger generation in Rochester and really get them engaged. I know at Eastman House we have a new young professionals group. But at the same time, I do see some of this idea of, all right, let them go because you have to just hope that they know best and they will be back. Because particularly if they grew up here and they have family here, this is what I run into all the time are the people who have done their stint in Boston, New York, Chicago, DC, but they're back because they're having kids and they have relatives here and they really want to have that quality of life and good school system. And so I agree that it's hard to, there's so much that we have in as far as culture, schools, outdoor recreation. I think that we don't play up our villages enough. I think that the historic villages, yes, we have the suburbs, but look how many beautiful villages that we have, many on the Erie Canal. And so that whole idea of marketing that kind of feel to families and really all that we have to offer to families.
Which, by the way, we didn't talk about water, but we'll have to leave that for another,
Yeah.
we might have to have a follow-up. But anyway, who else? Thanks, Eliza.
Well, I have to agree with my colleagues, but they've already picked that issue. But when you think about what our priorities are, and we talk about public safety, we talk about education, we talk about economic development, we talk about customer service. We've had a lot of discussions about where, in fact, could the city be a benchmark city. And we look at public safety, we honestly say we have a lot of work to do there. When we talk about education, that is a very big hill to climb. When we talk about economic development, there are some positive things happening, as Heidi has pointed out. We're working very hard about Sibley's and Midtown and trying to figure out what to do with that. But when we talk about customer service, governments are not known as being very oriented towards customer service. And we have a real effort going on inside of the city to see if, in fact, we can create a culture of service in government.
That's admirable.
And if we can, and if in fact that becomes obvious, that becomes our brand, we think it could make a very significant difference to the perception of the city and the general area of Rochester. So it's a little different.
Yeah.
It's a little different look at things, but we're working very, very hard at that.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Who else?